What would it feel like for you to see Mary Magdalene separate from Yeshua? What does that bring up for you? Is it intrigue, power, or resistance? Now, I've done Magdalene activations for the codes of the lifeblood before. And I've shared how I've seen memory streams, what I consider the memory streams of origin of the lived experience of Mary Magdalene and her life alongside Yeshua, how their missions, while woven together, were not the same, that they didn't carry the same harmonic triadic mission, that Mary Magdalene was in a harmonic soul-aligned triad with Mother Mary and a philosopher we know as Philo of Alexandria. When I did the activation of the lifeblood, the Magdalene lineage all over the grid, not just of Mary Magdalene's code, but the lineage of the tower holders, the keepers of the wisdom of restoration and heaven on earth. I said that I wouldn't say how I saw their union at the time, Mary's and Yeshua's, but when I said that during that activation, I did receive permission to do so, and I heard the essence of the memory say, "You can tell them." But now, as Sophionic codes and wisdoms is becoming louder, now that pistis is awakening, I want to tell you a remembered story of the stream that I have seen of Mary Magdalene's memory, not as an absolute truth, but as a resonance that is awakening now. So hi, if you're new here, I'm Leanna, an intuitive guide, a channeler, Polysophian field holder, and grid worker. I do many things, which you can find on my channel. And like I said, I've done activations around the Magdalene lineage. I've spoken about it in my mirror time video, if that is something you want to look into. And my previous video goes along with this, the unveiling of Pistis Sophia. And I've mentioned before how memory, channeled information, goes through its own period of restoration, its own period of unveiling different resonances, which I'll talk about more later. So the story that follows is an intuitively written transmission that aligns with the memory streams that I've accessed before of Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and Yeshua. And like I said, it's not to tell you your absolute truth. But beyond that, there is an energy, a frequency, a resonance beneath the words that I want you to feel into, to be open to, and to pay attention to what it awakens within you. So before I do that, I want to do a little somatic sensory practice just to help you align with feeling and not just hearing the words. So I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your feet, feeling it connected to the ground beneath you, the earth, and the grid. And breathing it all the way up to your crown as you exhale. And as you continue to breathe, you begin to feel soft, warm wind flowing around your body. You begin to smell the gentle scent of figs, a mineral in the air, a salt, a stone, and an herbaceous field. And you realize that you are standing in a luminous tower on the shores of Galilee, awakening to your own field, your own body, as its own tower. a feeling of restoration, of deep alignment, as you yourself hold keys and codes to embodying, to being heaven on earth. And this is a tower that you not just inhabit, but that moves with you, that reaches towards the sky and anchors firmly into the earth. And as you listen to this story, pay attention. What windows does it open? What doors does it close? What parts of you does it allow you to see more fully, to receive more fully, and to anchor in to your truth? So the daughter, the priestess, the patron that we know as Mary Magdalene was not always a Magdalene. Like all of us, she started as a child, a powerful one, a knowing one, and a seen. But even for their wisdom, she was not fully understood. Her family was killed when she was young, and with no one to take care of her, she lived with the all, but also in a house with other orphans at the time. Young, beautiful, and trusting of her surrounding, she laughed and played joyously with the other children. Yeshua, at this time, with his mother, they were devoted to their path and their light and understanding the ways of consciousness, of meditation, of creation. Mary, Yeshua's mother, knew the road, the map, the cosmic timing of things. She was the rhythm and the pulse. Yeshua was a strong light, a balanced activator of wisdom, of consciousness. Mother Mary, as we know her now, knew her path merged with others, knew her mission was to find them and bring them together. She knew Yeshua was to teach and prepare them and align them with how. He was a gift of wisdom before his time, not directly connected to their mission, but their teacher, to guide what they could not remember themselves, to bring higher order into balance, and to prepare resonant understanding of what was to be. At this time, he would have been a boy, no more than 13, but they were students, him and his mother, and leaders of the earth, so they wandered and searched, learned and prepared together. Mother Mary and Yeshua sought to bring together the pieces that they knew were needed. And one day they stumbled upon a home of unwanted children, the home where Mary Magdalene was kept. They saw her playing joyously with rocks, the sand, the earth. But it wasn't ordinary play. It was a play that touched the souls of others and the elements, in a way that Mother Mary could see the light emanating from the small child, could see the vibration of Mary Magdalene's light connecting to and working with the vibration of the field. Mother Mary felt an instant connection. Yeshua felt an instant kinship. And Magdalene knew they were her family, as she always knew that they would come. So Magdalene became their ward, their daughter, and their sister. When Magdalene grew, Mother Mary knew that she must go to the tower, to Magdala, that she needed the knowledge and wisdom of the womb, the embodied descent of heaven on earth. So Mary Magdalene was sent to the Magdalenes. She was trained in the ways of the body, not to escape, but to restore it to a unified wholeness, to honor its uniqueness while allowing the divine intelligence to come through it. This included training on restoration, sense, sensation, and tone, and how they wove through the field of the all. Mary Magdalene grew up, in a sense, at the tower, while Yeshua, who was several years older than her, began to teach. When her studies were done, Mother Mary and Yeshua, too, went to reunite with her, a daughter and sister found again. Mary Magdalene, established in the higher order of the Magdalene, was high-ranking in the sects of order, time, and memory, well-respected, well-sourced in her region of affluence. But she left to walk with Yeshua, as a sister, a student, and also as a guide. Yeshua's role was to awaken, to raise the consciousness, to bring more light so that when the others were ready, they would be received, seen, and known as truth. Mary Magdalene's was to prepare the knowing, the body, and the last song to be sung of the embodied whole, truth and coherence. Mother Mary's was to align the pace, the timing, and the heart of coherence. So they walked with one another. They found those that resonated with their journey, their teaching, and their field. While they walked, restored, and raised consciousness on earth, they passed lands and people that were slightly out of resonance with what they offered. Some hostile, some confused, some curious. And they would whisper about the husband, the wife, and the mother that would walk past, that would teach them, to share with them new ways of understanding. While Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were close and worked in tandem in ways of higher understanding and somatic intelligence, they never said they were married. They never said they were in union. But they allowed the land of confusion and hostility to perceive them in that way without correction, because what is a little misperception if it feels safer to all? As they continue their work, their travels, eventually they worked to restore nodal points in the earth. This required beings of different abilities. Those worked with the descent and the ascent, the alignment and the radial arcs of time and memory, and the network of the earth and the all. They amassed circles of both men and women, some to activate, some would cohere, some would anchor and root, and some would sing back. While one circle worked, the other held the field to allow for presence, stability, and harmonization. Documenting their journey, their practices, was a man by name who isn't often known to walk among them. But if you look long enough, you will find him. It's Philo, the lover of the heart-mind that walked with Mary Magdalene for a time, the keeper of time and cosmic knowing, the one who knew the way back and the path to walk. Mary Magdalene had a tenderness for Philo, always held, never said. When their teaching became feared, when they held the knowing that some would be punished, Yeshua held within him the knowing that he did not hold the same path as the others, that his role was to teach, to prepare, but not end and restore the final pieces of the puzzle. So he became louder, more seen, and by way of that more feared by those who wanted to control, to win, to earn. This is not a retelling of his story in full, but an illumination of where his story got confused for the one story of the whole group, of the whole web. When Yeshua was killed and crucified, Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, their circle, knew it was not what was destined, but what was, because their resonance was being used to distort and create more fear. They stood silently in honor of Yeshua's hurt and pain, carrying the lifeblood, the thorn of rupture and fragmentation, but also the spiral of the all, the rose, not as their lineage, but as a symbol of the beauty and wholeness that can grow from the pain, from the rupture, and from the memory it can leave behind. And Mary Magdalene stood there not as wife, not as possession, not as proxy to, but as priestess, as kin in the last song that needed to be sung, that never would be, at least not in her time. Mary carried within her a path that was all her own. Even among the triadic soul mission, that was stronger and more impactful than what had come before. She carried within her the undiluted concentration of the Sophia wisdom, a fractal of the One Mother that worked in rhythm and knowing with many others who carried their own codes in restoration. When Yeshua was lost, when their mission and work began to be villainized and weaponized, many followers, companions grew fearful of and for themselves. Many turned away from the path to seek safety, including Philo. But the Magdalenes continued not to restore heaven on earth, because that path had already diverged from the realm of their possibilities, without the resonant partners, without the coherence and higher resonance of the field. It had dispersed through the grid. But to teach, to sow the remembrances within the grid to return, to sing the song of thunder and lightning, of light and life, of soul and of being once more. So Mary Magdalene, in my world, was not the partner or the wife of Yeshua, but the sister, the student, the guide, and the anointer. Now, what if you allowed yourself to see her not just as that partner, or the priestess, or subservient to, or even beside, and in some understandings and equal to, but still shadowed by Yeshua's light, but to see her in her full light, her emanations, in her own path of sovereignty, of truth and desire, as a tower, all her own. That brought up anything for you. You may pause and reflect on what that brought up for you before I continue to explain a few things. And by explain, I'm going to do it intuitively. And there's a lot more I could explain logically. If you haven't watched one of my videos before, not every video mentions this, so you may not have heard me explain how I see memory of origin. So channeled, it's come through an origin frequency is the undiluted, unfragmented, before distortion stream. To me, I explain it as the memory of the lived experience through the record. Now, this story lies somewhere in between what has been documented and what has been intuited or channeled. For some, it may be in direct opposition to what they feel strongly about, and that's okay. It's not meant to replace that knowing, but it's to shed light on a field of restoration, of wholeness, of sovereignty without proximity. And I've also explained in my understanding why that is. That our access to multidimensional information, to memory streams, also goes through its own resonance. You have to be in a certain resonance to receive some things. The collective has to be in a certain resonance to receive some things. And so we go through these gates of remembering, of accessing different information until we restore it to a unified field. And two, we restore it to the frequency of origin, united in harmony with the all. But also united in harmony with polarity. I have accessed memories of Mary Magdalene at different times. But when I first started to explore, well, why are there these differences in streams? Why, if you go based off what history or the mainstream historians, the popular historians or well-respected historians will say, there's no evidence that Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were in union. But then there's all these clues that maybe there were. And then in intuitive spaces, they are idolized for their union. And when I questioned, well, what would be the purpose of them to be seen in union, even in the spiritual space? And there's several. But the root of it is fear. The root of the distortion is fear of power without proximity, without control, without manipulation. Not just hers, but in a way, all of theirs. So, we go through as a collective this resonance of where it is safe to understand our own wholeness, our own power. So the extreme part of distortion Mary Magdalene went through, being seen as the prostitute, the whore, who held no wisdom, who just had some relations with Yeshua. Honestly, I'm not super familiar with that. And then through the memory streams, we have the stories that were told about them, that were witnessed, that were misperceived, that were confused, and grew to a life of their own, a memory of their own. And then within that, you have your own belief, which decides the information that you're willing to perceive and that you're willing to honor. And so the fear of Mary Magdalene, the fear of personal sovereign power, the fear of the power of bringing through divine intelligence fully in form, and of, in a way, true union. Goes back to resonance, fear, and perception. And it's not just mainstream religion. It's not just political parties who govern, who have dominion. But it can be the orders, in my personal opinion, who teach the mysteries under these names. And sometimes that's unconscious, subconscious. Sometimes it has not been. It's been to confuse and disguise. And where it's unconscious is a fear of seeing your own power, your own presence, your own wholeness. And so by saying, in my world, Mary Magdalene was not in union with Yeshua, is not me saying that union does not have its place. In my opinion, it is a crucial component to understanding how to co-create with your reality. But this is true harmonic union, which comes from wholeness. It comes from honoring the polarity, the direction, the path, the differences that each person holds, and honoring them as fully whole in their own being, their own motion, their own expression. It's being how to navigate the differences between the two and balance them. It's not one overshadowing the other. It's not one merging into the other or two merging together. Because within creation, you cannot create without a certain amount of momentum, spin, direction, and tension. But go too far, and that's where the vector of co-creation, or the vortex of co-creation, snaps and breaks. When you can't navigate and bridge the differences. Now, with Mary Magdalene, there were a few things I wanted to explain, which is at the end, my intuitive story refers to her as the anointer. So when I bring through these words, similar in my last one, I write it all intuitively. And while I said I've seen the memory streams before, and this aligns with them, I will write down what comes through intuitively. Sometimes words that are added don't make logical sense to me until later. Anointer here does, because Mary Magdalene is known as an anointer, someone who works with sacred oils and scents. I wasn't coming fully from that angle, so it still sort of surprised me a little bit. And when I was reflecting on what do we want to convey here with anointer, so anointing would be marking something sacred with oil, so something as sacred, marking something as chosen, marking something as divine, maybe would be common interpretations of it. When I was reflecting on this, I had the knowing here that anointing was sealing, honoring the embodiment of your divine intelligence in form. Now, anointing, anointer comes from French originally. So it doesn't have a direct connection with Greek, but what I feel, is the root of what we perceive as gnosis, which is new, N-O-U-S. It's a root word that a lot of words meaning different types of wisdom or knowledge come from. But new is not just thoughts, cognition, brain workings. New is the unified field of intelligence. It's the cosmic mind. So that's why she is the anointer. The one who marks and seals when you're divine being, when you've embodied heaven on earth. And that is the tower. That is the teaching of the tower. In different ways and expressions. Now, why this is important is because even in the most loving union spaces, even in the most loving Mary Magdalene spaces, she can still be entranced in her proximity to Yeshua. She can still be misseen and not in her fullness of being. Because Yeshua was not her harmonic partner, but she gets tied to his power, his purpose, his light through her proximity. Through her perceived orbit of him, when she was always meant to step out his light and shine her own. So a reflection for you would be, where are you orbiting someone else's power, someone else's purpose, and mistaking it for your own? And what pieces of your own light are you allowing to be mistaken for others? Or are you allowing to be shadowed by your own fear of your own wholeness? And how do you see yourself differently? Knowing that you do not have to be in partnership to be whole. And in fact, true union of co-creation doesn't happen without wholeness within yourself. And that's where I'll leave you today. If you liked this video, please share, like, and subscribe. You don't have to take it as truth in order to like it, in order to receive something, in order to resonate. And always root back to your own compass, your own true north first. And I'll see you next time.